we spend a lot of time, analyzing the systemic pressure points of modern healthcare.
Right, the burnout rates, the
Mhm.
endless debates about resource allocation.
Exactly, the constant arguments over patient-to-staff ratios. But today, we are taking a really sharp detour away from that standard clinical environment.
A very sharp detour.
Yeah. So I want you to picture the exact opposite of a crowded, you know, fluorescent lit, chaotic urban trauma center.
Which is hard to even imagine if you're in it.
Right, but imagine a medical facility where the patient to staff ratio is strictly 1-to-1.
Just one patient.
Just one. There are no insurance authorizations to fight, no waiting rooms full of angry people.
Right.
And the clinical setting itself happens to be moving through the crystal clear waters of the Mediterranean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe you're anchored off the pristine coastlines of Ibiza or waking up to a sunrise over Monaco.
Not a bad view for a morning shift.
Not at all. Today's deep dive is exploring the hidden, hyper-elite ecosystem of VIP yacht nursing.
It really is an ecosystem that operates almost entirely in the shadows by design.
Right, the privacy aspect.
Exactly. We are looking at a paradigm that completely reconstructs the economic and environmental realities of clinical practice.
I mean, it's not just about practicing medicine on a boat.
No, not at all. It is about examining what happens to clinical outcomes and, honestly, a practitioner's career trajectory.
Right.
When you strip away every single limitation of the traditional healthcare system
Right.
and you replace it with virtually unlimited resources.
Which is just wild to think about. So to understand the mechanics of this, we are pulling from a highly specific source today.
Yeah, an exclusive recruitment briefing.
Right, from an agency called Medical Staff Talent. They have a European headquarters in Imperia Brava, Spain.
Which is a massive hub for this kind of maritime industry.
Exactly. So the mission of our deep dive today is to really deconstruct this niche pathway. We want to see how this career blends clinical excellence with this unparalleled lifestyle.
And crucial point here, how it offers Western-trained nurses a very direct route to absolute financial freedom.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, before we get swept away by the luxury of the yacht, we first have to dissect the reality of the ward that these professionals are leaving behind.
Yeah, the transition between those two environments is, well, it's extreme.
To say the least.
The recruitment material actually leans heavily into this contrast. They categorize the traditional hospital environment as this, quote, relentless cycle of exhausting shifts.
With strictly capped financial reward.
Exactly. And overwhelming patient-to-staff ratios.
Which we hear about all the time, but let's look at the actual mechanism of that exhaustion for a second.
Right, the psychological toll.
Yeah. In a standard intensive care unit, the cognitive load placed on a nurse is completely fractured.
Oh, totally. You are monitoring multiple critical patients at once.
You've got alarm fatigue, you're navigating constant interruptions from, doctors, families, other staff.
And you are operating fundamentally in a state of reactive triage. Reactive triage, that's a great way to put it. You are constantly managing the crisis of the moment.
Right, rather than having the bandwidth to actually optimize a patient's overall trajectory.
Which the source points out explicitly. It says that traditional nurses are basically forced to compromise on patient interaction.
Simply because of the math.
Yeah, you literally cannot be in 4 rooms at once. It's impossible.
But this yachting model introduces that strict 1-to-1 clinical care model we mentioned.
Which changes everything.
It really does. What's fascinating here is how the implications of a 1-to-1 model extend far beyond just, having more time to chat with your patient.
Right. It's not just bedside manner.
Exactly. When your entire clinical bandwidth is dedicated to a single ultra-high net worth individual, your practice shifts from reactive to hyper-proactive.
Oh, interesting. So you're getting ahead of things.
Precisely. The briefing specifically emphasizes that nurses in this role apply their advanced clinical judgment with absolute focus.
Absolute focus. Yeah. You are analyzing micro trends in their lab work. You're tracking their sleep architecture.
Wow.
You're monitoring subtle shifts in their baseline vitals, adjusting complex medication regimens in real time.
It kind of reminds me of a chef. Right.
I mean,
Like, imagine a chef leaving this chaotic, severely understaffed cafeteria kitchen where they're just pumping out volume.
oh, I see where you're going with this.
And then they become a private culinary artist for just one single client. They can focus on every single ingredient.
That's a really good analogy, actually.
But, okay, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
I understand the appeal of hyperfocus, obviously. But if you take a high-octane trauma nurse, Someone who is used to seeing, I don't know, 50 different incredibly complex physiological crises a week.
Right, someone who thrives in that adrenaline.
Yeah. And you place them in a highly insulated environment to watch over a single person for months on end. Doesn't that inherently degrade their broader clinical sharpness? Like, if you aren't running codes every week, aren't you going to lose the muscle memory for running a code?
That is probably the most common critique of private medicine, honestly.
It makes sense, right? Use it or lose it.
It does. But the briefing directly addresses this. They counter it by defining the role as a highly prestigious clinical appointment.
Okay, what does that actually mean in practice, though?
It means the preservation of clinical sharpness here isn't about volume. It is about depth.
Depth over volume.
Exactly. In a standard hospital, a nurse is executing a care plan that's often dictated by a massive bureaucratic hierarchy.
Right, you're following protocols set by a whole team of doctors.
On a yacht, while you do have a lead doctor, which we'll get into later, the minute-to-minute diagnostic vigilance falls entirely on you.
Because the doctor isn't always standing right next to you.
Right. You are responsible for complex medication management and the continuous monitoring of chronic conditions.
And I imagine the environment is always changing, too.
That's a huge part of it. If your VIP has a complex metabolic syndrome and a cardiac history, and they're traveling between different climate zones,
Oh, right.
changing time zones, altering their diet based on whatever country they're anchored in.
You are constantly having to recalibrate their baseline.
Exactly. You are operating as a completely self-contained medical intelligence unit. You have to synthesize their daily activities with their pharmacology.
Which requires a lot of brain power.
An immense amount of intellectual rigor. And that intense, continuous problem-solving prevents the clinical decay you were talking about.
So you trade the broad, chaotic exposure of the ER for this incredibly deep systemic mastery of one complex human machine.
Beautifully put, yes.
Which naturally sets up a massive barrier to entry.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you don't just, walk into a recruitment office off the street and ask to work on a super yacht.
I mean, you could try, but it wouldn't go well.
Right. The academic and experiential credentials outlined in the deep dive are brutal. They are so strict.
They have to be.
So the baseline requirement, just to even access the medical staff talent candidate portal, is a Western-accredited 4-year Bachelor of Science in Nursing, a BSN.
Right. Which is already a high standard.
But then, crucially, you must have spent the last 4 years mastering acute care in a fast-paced intensive care unit or emergency room.
4 years in an ICU or ER, that is not an entry-level gig.
Not at all. It's the baseline. This raises an important question, though, doesn't it?
It really does.
On the surface, a luxury yacht in the Mediterranean sounds like a wellness retreat. It sounds very relaxed.
Champagne and sunsets.
Exactly. So why does a luxury yacht need someone whose entire professional identity has been forged in the chaos of an emergency room?
We have to look at the physics and geography of maritime travel to understand that.
Okay, break that down for us.
A super yacht is an isolated, dynamic environment. I don't care how much marble and teak wood surrounds you.
Right, it's still a boat.
It's still a boat. When you are anchored off a remote coastline or you're undertaking a major maritime crossing,
You are physically distant from major land-based trauma centers.
exactly, you are geographically severed from definitive tertiary care. You do not have the luxury of hitting a button and calling a rapid response team.
Oh, wow. Because you are the rapid response team.
You are it. There's nobody else coming through those doors.
It's essentially a floating forward operating base, just with way better catering.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it, actually.
I mean, think about it. If the VIP client, who, let's be honest, is likely an older individual, probably with pre-existing comorbidities,
Statistically, yes.
if they suffer a sudden myocardial infarction, a heart attack, or a stroke, or even a severe physical trauma from, I don't know, a jet ski accident out on the water.
The initial golden hour of trauma care falls entirely on the shoulders of that nurse.
The golden hour. That critical window where interventions actually save a life.
Exactly. And the requirement for ICU or ER mastery ensures that the candidate possesses the raw autonomic reflex skills to manage that sudden physiological collapse.
Because you can't be Googling protocols in that moment.
No. They need to be able to establish an airway, manage complex hemodynamics, push advanced life support drugs.
And stabilize a critical patient independently.
Right. And remember, they might be doing all of this while fighting the physical movement of the ocean swells before a medevac can even be arranged.
I really want to focus on that environmental factor for a second.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because doing chest compressions or starting an IV on dry land in a brightly lit hospital room is one thing.
Right.
Doing it on a vessel that is pitching in heavy weather while simultaneously trying to coordinate a helicopter medevac over a satellite phone.
It's a completely different universe of stress.
It requires a central nervous system that simply does not panic.
Exactly. That is what those 4 years in the ICU buy the employer. Panic suppression.
Panic suppression, I love that term.
The employer is buying the nurse's ability to compartmentalize absolute chaos.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because the ideal profile isn't just about medical skills, it's a dual requirement. The source makes a point to emphasize the word prestige.
Yes, the VVIP aspect.
Right. You need the clinical skills of a trauma specialist, but you have to deploy them in a VVIP luxury environment.
Which requires an entirely different type of mental gymnastics, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You are moving from a public hospital ward where, brutal efficiency and blunt communication are often just necessary for survival.
Yeah, you don't have time to sugarcoat things in an ER.
Right. But now you're transitioning into this hyper-curated environment of extreme wealth.
The cultural transition is honestly often the steepest learning curve for these nurses.
I can imagine.
Ultra-high net worth individuals operate with a completely different set of expectations regarding service, discretion, presentation.
Everything has to be flawless.
Exactly. The nurse must seamlessly adapt their intense clinical training into this luxury setting without disrupting the atmosphere.
Meaning you can't leave medical wrappers lying around the teak deck.
Right. It means managing complex medical equipment invisibly. It means delivering bad news or enforcing strict health boundaries with the diplomacy of a seasoned ambassador.
And I imagine the friction there can be intense.
Oh, undoubtedly.
Think about it. If you have an incredibly powerful CEO or founder who is used to giving orders to thousands of people.
People who never say no to them.
Exactly. And you, the nurse, have to tell them they cannot have a specific meal or they can't go on a jet ski excursion today because their cardiac metrics are slightly off.
You have to enforce clinical authority over someone who possesses absolute financial and social authority over you.
That power dynamic is wild.
It is incredibly delicate. It requires a practitioner who is absolutely unshakable in their clinical convictions.
But also sophisticated enough to deliver that guidance with impeccable tact.
Right. You are not just a clinician at that point. You are a trusted confidant operating within the absolute inner sanctum of a highly private individual's life.
That sounds incredibly isolating, honestly.
It could be. But the source document makes a very deliberate point to alleviate some of the pressure of that isolation.
Right, I remember this part. It explicitly states, quote, "You are never isolated in this responsibility."
Which is such a crucial structural component of how modern elite maritime healthcare is organized today.
So it's not just one lone nurse against the elements.
No, the days of a single, solitary nurse on a mega yacht are largely over for vessels of this caliber.
Okay, so how does the floating clinic actually operate?
The briefing details what they call a secure double nurse shift system.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you are operating within a broader elite medical infrastructure on board.
Let's look at the mechanics of that. Working in a double nurse shift system fundamentally changes the fatigue equation.
Completely changes it.
Because you aren't just on call 24 hours a day, sleeping with one eye open for 3 months straight.
Right, which is what breaks practitioners in older models of private medicine. The continuous on-call model leads to the exact same burnout they were trying to escape in the hospital.
Just with a better view.
Exactly. But the double nurse system means true 24-hour coverage without the burnout.
Yeah.
You get guaranteed restorative downtime.
And you always have a peer.
Yes. You are always collaborating with a peer. It provides immediate on-site peer review.
That is huge. If a complex medical situation arises at 2 in the morning, you aren't making a high-stakes diagnostic decision in a vacuum.
You can wake your counterpart.
Yeah.
You can debate the pharmacology. You have a sounding board right down the hall.
And the hierarchy extends beyond just the 2 nurses. Right.
It does. The briefing outlines collaboration with a Western-trained lead doctor.
Who I assume isn't always physically on the boat.
They might be shore-based, or they might rotate on the vessel depending on the client's needs, but they are always in the loop. And the text also mentions specialist physiotherapists on board.
Wow. I want to visualize the actual daily workflow here, like during a long maritime crossing.
Okay, picture it.
Let's say they're sailing from the Côte d'Azur down to the Algarve. A multi-day journey. The daily routine isn't just taking a quick blood pressure reading and handing out some daily vitamins.
Oh, not at all. The yacht's medical day is heavily equipped.
So the nurse is likely managing advanced telemetry, coordinating with the lead doctor to review daily diagnostic data.
They are essentially operating a highly specialized telemedicine node while physically caring for the patient.
Right.
They are transmitting secure clinical data. They're managing an onboard pharmacy that probably rivals a small community hospital.
It's a fully self-contained, elite, mobile hospital.
Exactly. And integrating with the physical therapy team to optimize the VIP client's mobility and chronic condition monitoring.
It sounds incredible, but, and there's a big but here, the source includes a very specific caveat.
A warning, really.
Yeah, buried in the recruitment language. It clearly states that this role is, quote, far from a vacation.
Which is an essential reality check for any candidate blinded by the geography.
Because the geography is inherently deceptive.
It tricks the brain.
It really does. When you tell someone they're going to live on a multi-million-dollar super yacht in Mallorca, the brain instantly visualizes leisure. You think of sipping espresso on the deck.
But the psychological reality of maritime cohabitation is intense.
Let's talk about the challenges of that environment. You are living and working at sea permanently, or at least for very extended rotations.
Right. You are confined to a highly engineered floating box.
Yes, it is a very luxurious box.
But it is confined nonetheless. You can't just go for a walk around the block to blow off steam.
And you are cohabitating with everyone.
Everyone. You're living with your nursing counterpart, a massive crew deck hands, engineers, chefs.
And most critically, you are living with your employer.
Yes.
The boundary management must be exhausting. I mean, in a standard job, no matter how bad the shift is, you eventually walk out the doors of the hospital.
You get in your car, you drive home.
You go to a space where you do not have to perform. You can just be yourself.
On a yacht, your bedroom is down the hall from your workplace.
Right. You step out of your cabin to grab a coffee in the morning, and you are immediately back on stage.
The requirement for ultimate professionalism is continuous. You're always on.
Always under observation.
Exactly. You must maintain strict confidentiality regarding the VVIP's health protocols. You have to navigate the complex sinful dynamics of a large crew living in tight quarters.
Which is basically its own soap opera, I'm sure.
Oh, inevitably. And you have to manage your own psychological well-being in an environment where true solitude is almost impossible to find.
So the emotional labor required to maintain that facade day after day, while simultaneously maintaining clinical hypervigilance, it's immense.
It is the ultimate golden handcuff scenario.
Yeah.
The pressures are unique and arguably just as heavy as a hospital ward.
Just in a different flavor.
Exactly.
Which naturally brings us to the compensation.
A part everyone wants to know about.
Right, because why would a highly trained ICU nurse subject themselves to the isolation of maritime life, the relentless power dynamics of a billionaire employer, and the continuous pressure of being the sole line of defense in a medical crisis?
Well, the structural economics of the VIP Yacht Nurse model answer that question definitively. The money. The compensation package detailed in the source is designed to completely overwrite the traditional financial timeline of a medical professional.
Let's get into the exact numbers because the briefing is very clear. It outlines a tax-free salary ranging from £60,000 to £90,000 per year, and that's sterling denominated.
Right.
Now, on its face, a top-tier ICU nurse in a major Western city like London or New York might look at £90,000 and think, okay, that's a good salary, but I could make something comparable working heavy overtime on land.
Sure, if you pick up enough extra shifts, you can hit those numbers in a hospital.
But evaluating just the top-line salary fundamentally miscalculates the wealth-building mechanism of this specific role, doesn't it?
Completely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the math. The briefing explicitly outlines that major living costs and overhead drop to absolutely zero.
Zero. Let's actually run the math on the modern cost of living to see how drastic this is.
Let's do it.
If you are making £90,000 in a major city, your first massive hemorrhage of capital is taxes.
Oh, huge.
Depending on the jurisdiction, 20 to 35% of that money is just gone before it ever hits your bank account.
But with a tax-free maritime structure, assuming you meet the residency requirements for offshore work, of course, you are already capturing tens of thousands of pounds in retained capital right off the bat.
True financial freedom starts right there. And then you have the housing crisis.
The biggest expense for almost everyone.
Renting or paying a mortgage in a city near a major hospital consumes a massive percentage of a nurse's take-home pay.
Sometimes up to half of it.
But the source guarantees fully covered premium living expenses.
High-quality private accommodation is explicitly mentioned.
Your rent is mathematically zero.
Cool.
Next is the cost of sustenance and logistics. Traditional nurses pay for commuting, vehicle maintenance, car insurance.
Not to mention the inflated cost of groceries and convenience food, because when you're working exhausting 12-hour shifts, you don't have time to cook.
Right, you're ordering takeout. But on the yacht, your nutrition is managed by a private chef.
Your utilities are covered.
And all travel expenses are subsidized. You are traveling across iconic destinations. The Texas, the Côte d'Azur, Mallorca, the Algarve.
You're not paying for those flights or that fuel.
So what does this all mean? The cumulative effect is staggering.
It really is.
When you remove rent, taxes, utilities, food, and transport, what you are left with is basically a 100% retention rate on your salary.
Every single pound of that 60,000 pound to 90,000 pounds goes directly into the bank.
Which fundamentally accelerates long-term goals for anyone in this role.
It alters a practitioner's entire financial life cycle.
Right, because in traditional healthcare, a nurse might save a tiny fraction of their income each month.
Hoping to achieve financial stability after, what, decades of physical and emotional wear and tear?
Exactly. It's usually a distant milestone. But this setup is a shortcut to financial autonomy.
A massive shortcut. You spend 5 years on a yacht, banking 80,000 pounds a year with zero expenses.
And you exit with nearly £500,000 in pure, liquid, tax-free capital.
The text explicitly mentions using this to build an untouched nest egg.
Or purchasing property, investing. It buys you the ultimate luxury.
The ability to walk away.
Exactly. It allows a practitioner to return to the traditional healthcare system on their own terms. Or they can leave it entirely.
They can fund further education without loans, start a private practice, or just retire decades early.
It transforms clinical expertise into absolute financial autonomy.
It really does.
So we have mapped the terrain here. We understand the physiological demands of the 1.1 Maritime model.
The absolute necessity for acute care mastery.
Right. The 4 years in the ICU. We've talked about the claustrophobia and the prestige of the floating clinic.
And, of course, the unparalleled financial velocity.
So the final operational question is, how does one actually step into this world? How do you make the leap?
The deep dive outlines the official process very clearly. They direct interested, Western-trained nurses to a highly specific candidate portal.
Right, for submitting a curriculum vitae. The URL is medicalstafftalent.com. Send us your -CV.
But submitting the documentation, that's merely the administrative step of a much larger psychological leap.
It's a complete identity shift, isn't it?
Precisely. When a nurse with a 4-year BSN and extensive ICU experience uploads their credentials to that portal, they are signaling a willingness to completely detach from the institutional framework of modern medicine.
They are agreeing to a total lifestyle integration.
Yes. Your daily routine now involves traversing the Mediterranean, but your professional focus remains ruthlessly locked on clinical excellence.
Which brings me to you, the listener. Whether you are an exhausted ICU nurse looking for an exit strategy, or simply someone fascinated by how the ultra-wealthy manage their private healthcare.
It's a fascinating intersection, isn't it?
It really is. This role represents this incredible intersection of clinical rigor and high-end luxury. It demonstrates that the skills forged in the most chaotic, underfunded environments on Earth are incredibly valuable in the most exclusive, well-funded environments on Earth.
It proves that the two aren't mutually exclusive, provided the practitioner has the resilience to navigate those unique challenges of living at sea.
So to provide a concise recap of everything we've unpacked today, VIP Yacht Nursing offers a way for highly skilled ICU or ER nurses, specifically those with a 4-year BSN, to escape hospital burnout.
By operating within a strict 1.1 care model, backed by a lead doctor and a dual nurse system.
Exactly. And while doing so, these nurses can enjoy a premium Mediterranean lifestyle, banking a tax-free salary of up to £90,000, completely free of standard living expenses.
Truly unprecedented financial retention.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something that pulls this all back to the mainland.
Yeah, let's look at the bigger picture.
We have just spent this entire deep dive exploring a medical model that fundamentally works.
It works beautifully for the patient.
Right. And it works because it eliminates overwhelming patient ratios. It eliminates financial capping for the staff. It provides massive structural and peer support. And it operates with virtually unlimited resources.
The outcomes for the ultra-wealthy patient are exceptional, and the financial health of the nurse is optimized.
So here's the thought I want you to explore on your own. If we know definitively that this elite 1.1 maritime care model proves that nurses thrive and patient care is optimized when overwhelming ratios and financial ceilings are eliminated.
What lessons could the traditional mainstream hospital system borrow from the ultra-wealthy?
Exactly. Obviously, we cannot put every patient on a super yacht.
That's just math.
But if the core crisis of nurse burnout is solved simply by investing adequate capital into the well-being, the support systems, and the bandwidth of the practitioner,
Why do we accept the current state of our mainland hospitals as inevitable?
why do we accept burnout as just part of the job? It's
Yeah.
something to think about the next time you find yourself navigating the fluorescent lights of a standard ward.